Can you imagine leading the Formula One championship? And from one day to the next feeling that your car is completely different without having any idea why? And while you fight to survive on the track, your teammate destroys the rest of the field with more than 30 seconds ahead. Well, that's exactly what Oscar Piastri experienced in Mexico, and what the data reveals goes beyond a bad day. Is McLaren facing a bigger problem than it admits? An inexplicable weekend. This could be summarized what McLaren experienced at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez during the 2025 Mexican Grand Prix. But that phrase, which seems simple, hides a deeply disturbing and technically disconcerting story. Oscar Piastri, until then leader of the World Drivers' Championship, experienced a drop in performance as abrupt as it was mysterious. While his teammate, Lando Norris, offered a performance that bordered on perfection, driving from pole position to victory with more than 30 seconds ahead of the second-place finisher, the Australian driver was not only unable to keep up with him, but also finished fifth, 42 seconds behind the Briton. There were no obvious mistakes, there were no incidents, there were no clear reasons. Just a difference in pace so marked that it set off all the alarms within the Woking team. From the first moment of the weekend, the difference between both McLarens was evident. In free practice, Piastri was already showing consistently slower times than Norris. But what really sparked concern was Saturday's classification. Piastri was relegated to 8th position, almost 6/10 behind his teammate. In modern Formula One, a difference of 0.588 seconds between two drivers in the same car is not just unusual, it is scandalous. And it was even more so because that difference did not arise from a specific error or a compromised lap. It was a constant. Throughout all the sessions from Friday until the checkered flag on Sunday, the difference only confirmed and expanded. The immediate question was, what was happening with Piastri? The short answer is that he didn't even know. From his perspective, the car was behaving normally. He reported no brake problems, no aerodynamic imbalance, no engine failures, no vibrations, nor an inadequate setup. In his own words, everything felt reasonably good. But the data told another story, a much more disturbing one. The disconnection between what I felt in the cockpit and what the stopwatches reflected turned the weekend into a nightmare with no logical explanation. Piastri even publicly acknowledged that he felt confused. He said that some things could be easily corrected, but others just didn't make sense. It didn't take long for the theories to emerge. On social media, some fans even talked about internal sabotage or deliberate strategies by the team to favor Norris. Others pointed to a possible hidden fault in the chassis of the Australian's car. But within the team, the search for answers took a more technical turn. The telemetry was analyzed with a magnifying glass. Onboard cameras were checked over and over again. The driver's feedback was cross-referenced with data from the power unit, braking system, suspension, tire management, and aerodynamic balance. And despite the complexity of all these systems, no definitive cause was found to justify the poor performance. No component was out of place. No parameter seemed out of range. And it is in that void of explanations where the real mystery begins to appear. How can a driver feel good about the car, do what he believes is right, and still be half a second behind his teammate with the same car? Is this a human failure, a technical disconnection, or something deeper? The situation was so serious that, for the first time this season, McLaren was facing not a performance problem per se, but a complete lack of correlation between data, sensations, and results. For a team that has honed technical precision as its calling card since 2024, this anomaly represented a direct threat to its internal trust structure. And the most worrying thing was yet to come. Not even after the race, with all the material analyzed and the data crossed, the team had a definitive explanation. Just a series of clues that pointed in a disturbing direction. Perhaps the problem was not with the car, but with how the car needed to be driven. What at first seemed like an unsolvable mystery began to take shape when McLaren engineers delved into data collected during the Mexican Grand Prix. After hours of telemetric analysis, onboard comparisons, and technical meetings between track engineers and Oscar Piastri himself, a disturbing pattern emerged. The difference between the two McLarens was not random, nor was it due to a single sector of the circuit. There was a constant, an element repeated lap after lap that explained where that half a second was lost per lap. And that pattern was not hidden in a fault with the car, but in the way it had to be driven in low grip conditions. The slow sectors, especially the first of the Mexican layout and the technical complex of the stadium, exposed a radical difference in the behavior between the two drivers. Norris managed to generate rotation in the car in very early phases of the curve, releasing the rear with surgical precision and allowing the car to slide slightly to point the nose sooner towards the exit. Piastri, on the other hand, showed more conservative lines with slower entries, longer braking periods, and less commitment to the rear of the car. What for Norris was a car with freedom to move, for Piastri was a nervous, unstable, and lacking confidence car. That technical detail is essential. The MCL39 in its current configuration requires the driver to embrace some instability to be truly fast on tracks like Mexico. It is a car that, as confirmed by Andrea Stella, needs to be driven in sliding when the grip on the asphalt is low. The way in which this slip is managed, the sensitivity on the steering wheel, the dosage of the accelerator, and the exact moment of the turn makes the difference between a car that flows and one that resists. And that is where the gap between Norris and Piastri became unbridgeable. But this is not limited to a question of style. What the data revealed was that the technical development of the car, especially after the updates midway through the previous season, has led the MCL39 to favor a type of driving more akin to that of Lando Norris. The car evolved towards a more effective aerodynamic package in medium and low-speed corners, but at the cost of a smaller stability window. That is, to extract maximum performance, the driver needs to accept more aggressive, even unpredictable, behavior in certain track conditions. Pirelli's measurements at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez reinforced this thesis. The grip level was between 10 and 15% below the standard. For a driver like Norris, who has shown an extraordinary ability to adapt, this became an opportunity to shine. For Piastri, however, it was an invisible trap. Although his talent is undeniable, his more structured and precise style does not translate into speed when the car demands a more instinctive and less linear approach. From the cockpit, Piastri had no clear indicators that anything was wrong. I didn't feel excessive understeer, uncontrollable oversteer, or strange vibrations. But that's the most disconcerting thing. The car felt good, even right. The problem was that it was not operating in the zone of maximum performance, but in a safer, more predictable point, and also slower. It wasn't that the car didn't work, it was that it wasn't being driven properly to exploit its true potential. This discovery opened a deep technical debate at McLaren. Can a team afford to have a car that is so effective for one driver and at the same time so limiting for the other? Should they consider a fork in the builds or even the development of future evolutions to give both drivers a competitive tool on their own terms? The team still has no answers, but the problem has been identified. The MCL39 has implicitly defined its number one driver, not by political decisions but by its own technical nature. And perhaps the most disturbing of all is not what happened in Mexico, but what may happen in the next circuits if the low grip conditions persist. Because if the pattern repeats itself, what today is a technical curiosity could become a sporting sentence for Oscar Piastri. What the Mexican Grand Prix has left is not only a specific performance gap between teammates, but a warning that Oscar Piastri could be entering a technical spiral that compromises his season. And that warning has consequences that go far beyond a disappointing result. What happened at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez could have marked the beginning of a structural fracture within McLaren, an unexplicit but palpable dilemma between a car that favors a driver and another that is beginning to fall behind. In a championship as close as 2025, where every tenth, every technical decision and every free session counts, that difference can end up costing titles. Andrea Stella and her technical team face a major technical and human challenge. Finding a balance between maintaining the aggressive development that has taken the MCL39 to the top and recovering a setup that allows Piastri to feel comfortable again will be a task of surgical precision. But they must also do so without compromising the general rhythm of the car or generating internal divisions in the team. Because when a car starts talking to only one of its drivers, the risk of turning the other into a shadow grows race after race. What we have witnessed at the Mexican Grand Prix is not simply a bad weekend for Oscar Piastri. It is the manifestation of an invisible fracture that could redefine McLaren's internal dynamics and completely alter the development of the 2025 championship. Do you think the team will find a solution that works for both drivers? Or are we facing the beginning of a silent division that will end with one number one designated and another relegated to the role of squire? Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.